As we've been doing throughout this entire pandemic, we've been relying on the expertise and the kindness of our good friend, Dr. Dennis Norem from Mercy Health, to show up with us here every Monday to discuss where we are currently, where we're going, and some of the things that maybe you didn't know about what's going on with this ongoing pandemic. Dr. Norem, good morning.
Good morning to you guys.
How's everything going this morning?
Everything's going well. And Riley, I wanted to let you know, because I know you're a big fan, but Jerry Marston of Jerry and the Pacemakers died this past week.
Yep, I saw that. Made me feel guilty for bashing Ferry across the Mercy, and you pointed out that you like that song, and then the guy goes ahead and passes away to make me feel even worse about all of it. You're such a jerk.
Well, I thought I'm a big conspiracy theorist, and I thought maybe you had a hand in that.
Well, I have a very, very good alibi that should stand up to, reasonable scrutiny. So we'll see. Yeah, but Jerry Marston, Jerry the Pacemakers, a guy who, of course, Liverpool fans around the world love because he did their big song. But passed away last week. I don't think it was COVID related, though. No? I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure.
I didn't see anything saying that. So anyway.
Good to know. Hey, speaking of, Pfizer says their vaccine, Dr. Norem, can work against variants, which is a word we've been seeing kicked around quite a bit recently. Variants.
Yeah, a huge concern that we have discovered that there's a couple new variants that are more contagious. They appear to be no more deadly, but certainly more contagious. And as you've seen, the rate of infectivity across the country and the world is at a really all-time high, spiking. The only good news I see is that the positivity rate here in Winnebago County in our state has dropped just slightly, so hopefully that's a good sign.
Yeah, we do know flu season. The flu can change and mutate throughout a season. Is this the exact same thing? Is this the exact same, severity of mutation going on with COVID as we usually kind of see with flu during a winter season?
Well, absolutely. Viruses of all types can mutate, and this was, I think, to be totally expected. The concern has been, will it mutate into a more aggressive form, which would be a problem, and number two, would it mutate into a form that the vaccination would be less effective? And so far, that appears not to have happened. It's certainly a more aggressive but no more deadly form of COVID at this point.
And how does a test show that it's a different form of COVID? How do you guys know that this patient has COVID A and this patient has COVID B?
I think in a simple way of looking at it is they really look at the DNA, the DNA structure of these viruses. They kind of break it down. I don't know enough about the testing to know how they modify the testing to figure that out. I do know that for most of our flu testing, for instance, all we can tell is if it's a type A or a type B. We can't subtype it. So that has to be done in a research lab to subtype the flu. So I suspect that these have to be sent to a research lab so they can subtype them.
They say two easier to spread new variants of the virus have the world on edge. One discovered in Britain, the other in South Africa, but they share a common mutation. Pfizer researchers say lab tests show the mutation does not block the vaccine, but they need more tests to see if an additional mutation could be cause for concern. This preliminary study was posted on an online research site late Thursday. It has not been reviewed by other experts yet.
No, we're still obviously... the scientists are still looking at that issue, and it would probably take more time to be absolutely sure that the immunizations that we currently have are still effective against the variants. And then we need to watch to see what other mutated variants pop up, which for sure we're going to see more as this progresses.
And I know there were reports that the new strain was popping up in the Chicago area in Cook County. I don't know if that was confirmed yet. Do you know if it has been confirmed, and have we seen it migrate west towards here?
I believe that has been confirmed in the Chicago area. I don't know if they've confirmed it's exactly the same strain as the British strain, and I haven't seen any reports here and locally in Rockford, but for sure it's going to spread across the whole country eventually. And that's the way flu goes. Typically, in previous years, when we see a new strain, as the season starts, it typically spreads across the whole country.
Speaking of flu, just as an off ramp on this one, I guess the CDC wasn't going to keep a running count, or at least they weren't going to publish a running count on how we were doing with flu around the country. But it would stand to reason that flu would be down, would it not? Given the social distancing, the masks, the more than ever before attention we're putting toward hand washing.
Absolutely. The only figure I saw, and I believe it was not the state of Illinois, it was a different state, but they reported 2%, less than 2% of the usual flu cases. And I think clearly that's related to all of the social distancing and the protective equipment that we're wearing and washing our hands and sanitizing. I mean, those are the things that we've tried to get people to do for years when we had flu season. And most of us have kind of thought, well, flu's the flu, and we'll be a little careful, but not that careful.
But that's one of those things, too, that when we look at the flu deaths, just on average around this country from year to year, there are just as many, if not more, people who die from the flu than die in car accidents.
I believe it depends on the season. I've seen, I think, years where we've had as few as 15,000 flu deaths, and then we've had some more aggressive years when we were up in the 40s, 50s. Maybe there was that one year that was a little bit higher when we had that real aggressive flu that lasted. But yeah, I think that many times there are years where flu deaths are certainly at the level or slightly higher than our auto deaths.
The governor announced that we may be going to a less restrictive tier of mitigations coming up. He said we didn't quite see the uptick after Thanksgiving that maybe we had predicted. Are we also not seeing the uptick after Christmas that maybe we thought we were going to?
Well, it appears here in Illinois we probably haven't seen quite the uptick that was predicted. I think we're going to need another week to kind of see what the results of all that holiday travel is. On the other hand, if you look at the big picture, of course, it's more prevalent across the whole country, so we're seeing record rates nationally and certainly record rates of death. But I think, again, there's some encouraging news. If we're starting to see a little downside, and we're, we're the 11th day now after the New Year, so it looks like maybe we're heading in the right direction finally. Yeah,
would the 20? I mean, how many weeks out of Christmas do we have to get before we know kind of what Christmas did to our numbers? I mean, the 20th, is it 3 weeks after? I mean, is there a date?
I think 3 weeks after Christmas. By next week, when we get together next Monday, I think we'll have a better idea looking at the incidence rates and the death rates. And hopefully by then we'll see a significant drop in both of those incidents and hospitalizations.
Back to the vaccines for a second. I'm looking at a piece from the Associated Press this morning saying the World Health Organization has issued recommendations saying that the interval between administration of 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine can be extended up to 6 weeks. Published their advice, interval 21 to 28 days between doses is recommended, but they're also pointing out that part of the reason for them saying that it's okay is because of vaccine supply constraints.
And that gets back to this idea that I think Britain has proposed, that they would just use up all their vaccine as quickly as possible and not worry about how quickly they could get the second dose in. I think that's very reasonable. If we were sure that we could get that second dose within that 6-week time frame, then I think you could certainly expand the population that you vaccinate the first time around. The concern is, what if there's a production problem and you've vaccinated people and now you're looking at 3 months or longer to get the second shot in? That's a huge concern if we don't get it in a timely manner. But I think 6 weeks is a reasonable interval.
We were talking to one of your other colleagues from Mercy Health last week about the vaccines, and he said that most of his staff and his department and building have already gone through, had just received the second shot of immunizations. What's that like in your office? Have you gotten your second round? Has most of your offense already gotten through it? And is there another batch on the way?
I have gotten my second this past Wednesday. At Mercy, we did our second round for the healthcare workers starting Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I believe that our system is out, except for possibly a few doses they have left for people who want to get first shots. He did not get them the first time around. But in the office where I worked, I believe most people have gotten it. I think there was maybe one person who was still waiting. But unfortunately, that person that's waiting may have to wait a while because they missed the first time. So they're on a list, but we don't have a definite time frame when they'll get the next supply. That's not known yet.
I've seen numbers all over the place, but as high as 40% of some healthcare workers that decided to pass on at least the first administration of the vaccine. Is that number anywhere close to what you've experienced?
That's probably not too far off. And again, I think when they sent out the survey, there were 30 to 40% that said they would get it right up front, but there was a large number of people that are just kind of watching and waiting. And as this is rolled out, I know a number of those people are willing to now proceed ahead. We just haven't seen any kind of significant problem with the vaccine. I think in the whole country, there's only been maybe 15 to 20 cases of people having an allergic reaction. There's been no deaths that I'm aware of. That's really a very impressive safety profile.
It really is. For those just joining us, we're spending some time with Dr. Dennis Norem from Mercy Health talking COVID-19. As an ancillary note, I'm looking at this thing about a recent study in Illinois found that nearly 20% of school kids have a mental health problem. And with the pandemic, according to this, doctors say the problem has only grown. Loss of peer contact, social interaction in school, loss of a relative, financial strain at home. All of those things are really taking a toll on children's mental health. I say that as I'm looking at the headline about some Chicago public school students are returning to classrooms today, despite pushback from Chicago Teachers Union. This study basically is saying that not being in school, not going through a lot of the things that their lives normally revolved around is taking a lot bigger toll than maybe we realize.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've touched on this subject on and off through this whole COVID crisis, but kids, need to be in school, and kids really need that socialization. Not that all of us don't need to be out and around a bit, but I think kids suffer even more than adults do. So it's been a very difficult issue to deal with, and trying to deal with mental health issues of kids is difficult because the parents are dealing with mental health issues and all those things that you've mentioned. So hopefully we can get kids going back to school. It's disappointing to see what's happened in Chicago. I think half the teachers did not return to school. And we need to figure out a way to get our kids back in school.
One good bright note in this study here is the study's lead author says they're hopeful that with some help and once the effects of the pandemic subside, that kids will recover and recover quickly.
Well, kids are pretty durable, actually, and I think if we can get through this and get kids back in school within the next 4 to 5 months, we'll see them pop back pretty quickly. The big concern is how quickly can we get a vaccine approved for kids. As it stands now, there is no vaccine approved for children under the age of 16, and hopefully that can be accomplished here fairly quickly.
That's a goal I haven't really heard publicly before about wanting to get the vaccine for children as well. Do you see that happening before this is all over?
Well, I think the studies have begun currently, but there is this. The problem is we're trying to get adults vaccinated, and that's really taken up the energy and the resources, which also. Something I saw last week, which we talked about, I think, previously, is studying to see whether the vaccine prevents the spread. There was going to be a large study undertaken that they just announced they canceled to try to determine whether the vaccine actually stops the spread of COVID. Because as we've talked about, 50% or more of COVID is spread by asymptomatic carriers. And we don't know for sure if being vaccinated makes you completely stops your ability to spread the vaccine. So unfortunately, those studies are not being done yet about spread. But kids, I think they are studying.
Do you have any idea why that study was canceled? It seems like something we should look at.
Well, they said the problem is that our resources and time and energy are going into trying to vaccinate people, and they didn't think they could pull the study off given the current urgency and necessity of everybody focusing on getting people vaccinated.
All right. Well, that might be something to put on the to-do list.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
Yes.
Take a look at that.
Just as a couple of laymen making suggestions to the pros. Just a thought on that one. That'll pretty much run us out of time. Dr. Norem, as always, we can't tell you how much we appreciate the time and the expertise. And pandemic is still rolling on, so we'll look forward to talking to you again next Monday.
Absolutely, guys. Have a good week.